in South Africa. Like if you're going to be in the telecom space in South Africa, you need to have BEE ownership, right? You need to give away BEE ownership. I think it's like 26% or 30%, if I'm not mistaken, right? But you have to give away BEE or a percent to BEE ownership. So that's the problem. Oh, Babu Elon wants to own everything. He wants to come to South Africa. Afage is Starlink. So what is Starlink? Starlink is basically an internet service as well, right? It's an internet service azoyifaka up there in the atmosphere. Elon, right? And then we can get cheap data. It's basically Wi-Fi. How Starlink satellite works. Let's look at this.
Starlink is revolutionizing the way we connect. Want to know how? Let's dive in. Picture this. Thousands of tiny satellites orbiting Earth, all working together. That's Starlink. These satellites send internet signals straight to your home. No cables needed. So how does it work? First, Starlink launches satellites into low Earth orbit, about 340 miles up. These satellites form a massive network, or constellation. They communicate with each other using lasers. Yep, lasers. When you need internet, your Starlink dish, also known as a user terminal, connects to the nearest satellite. That satellite then links up with others until it finds a ground station connected to the internet backbone. Data zips back and forth in milliseconds. Why is this awesome? Unlike traditional internet, Starlink reaches remote areas where cables can't go. Faster speeds, lower latency, perfect for gaming, streaming, and more. And that's how Starlink is bringing the future to your doorstep.
Yeah, so Starlink is basically internet. It's wireless internet. Uzofaka ama-satellites up there instead of ama-wire. So it's wireless instead of using cords and everything. So it's more efficient and everything, apparently. But then when you come into South Africa, I think you need to give away BE ownership, right? So that is the problem. Agafunu Elon. So Elon is saying South Africans or South African laws are racist because, I want to see this American horror, man. They're saying, what is this, man? What am I? So he's saying a lot of, I think he has a number like 140 something laws, race laws, specifically laws that address race here in South Africa. And they're racist, right? So Big Elon doesn't like that, right? Big Elon doesn't like that a lot. So there's a problem. Nah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know, but I think it's a two-part question. Ukuthi la eSouth Africa yini ekhona? Right? I mean, it's no Vodacom, it's no MTN, it's no, Cell C just went public. Right? Because they do it too. Like Vodacom has a BEE scheme, like, right? But now I'm talking too much because I'm my tweet got Elon Musk SA Starlink tweet. Here we go, something like this. Oh yeah, Starlink is not allowed to operate in South Africa because I'm not black. So where does this come from?
140 race-based laws in South Africa.
140.
Anti-white. And 8 days ago, race-based laws in South Africa, all anti-white. And 8 days ago, Cyril Ramaphosa, our president, signed into law, and just hear these 3 words: expropriation without compensation. And this is just the straw that broke the camel's back. There's been endless laws, anti-white, boiling us like a frog in a bowl. And all I can say is thank you, America, and thank you, Donald Trump, for taking notice, because we are on the edge of the socialist abyss.
So how do you guys get out of this? Obviously, there's a complex racial history there. How do you reverse some of this? I mean, that's an awful lot of laws, and
I don't think we can internally. We have to wait till the 2029 national election, and I don't think our economy will survive. It requires some external dynamic to change it. And I think Donald Trump and America taking notice and coming.
I don't think it requires an external. I don't think it does. So he says South Africa is on the edge of a socialist abyss. He's basically narrating what Rob Hessoff was saying. So 140 race-based laws in South Africa, all anti-white. There's been endless laws, anti-white, boiling us or like a frog in a bowl. And all I can say is thank you, America, and thank you, Donald Trump, for taking notice, because we are on the edge of the socialist abyss.
Notice and coming in swinging with a baseball bat may be that dynamic we need.
so when you saw over the last couple of years in America wokeness infecting our systems, and suddenly we were focused on race, and we were putting it into it was this very people who said we were systemically racist that were putting racism into the system in a systemic way. Must have given you a little concern about the direction we're going, as much as that's now been rolled back.
Well, we've been infected in South Africa with the evil woke mind virus, way more than in America. We've got it times 2, and there's no momentum in South Africa to reverse it. In fact,
The thing about rich people is that they're out of touch. They're out of touch. Like there's nothing disheartening as someone who's out of touch. And the thing about South Africa, ukuthi, till now, the politics is still racial politics. Like politics here too is still centered around race. And you can't get away from it. Some people want to get away from it, and they have specific reasons why they want to get away from it. They want to, shift the goalpost into other things and to say, no, let's do this now, right? Let's stop focusing on race, right? And then you have another group that looks at everything in South Africa and says, wait a minute, right? Why is it that poor people exist, right? Poor people exist. People who don't have anything exist anywhere in the world and everywhere in the world. But why is it that it's always me and the person who looks like me? There's most of us here, but it's every one of us. Siswele, asinalut, asinazindlu, asinamathwele. We don't have this, we don't have that, right? Sharp. Now, there's the politic thing, or there's the political side of it. Which the ANC has fucked us up. They're fucked up, right? But then, I think, on top of that, the ANC fucking up, I think it's kind of made us vulnerable to arrogance. And it has made us vulnerable and opened the door for another chatter to come into the door. Because now it's almost like, yonke lento yenziwe ANC quote unquote njengoba bebiza nge-liberation movement, it was for nothing, because you were liberating for what? Who did you liberate, and what did you do with it when you liberated people, right? So they messed up in such that not only would badly imali, but on top of that, they created abantu who always had things, who always had a nice life, a comfortable life, right? And there was no need even for us to drop the apartheid to begin with. They had no incentive to drop the apartheid, right? Then when the ANC came, they fucked things up so much so that we've gotten to a point where people who were privileged are coming back with the arrogance. And then they have new words now for people's poverty, right? Either caused by the ANC or, in fact, caused by the ANC because the ANC failed to redress, right? The thing about BEE. BEE was well-intentioned, but ANC pissed it down the drain, right? So now sekunabantu they're coming back and they are validated because bane proof. I'm a bridge nowhere. Ibhedlela they are nowhere. Kushona abantu every day, kushona ingane every day. Oh mama bafika. You get me? So it validates a lot of things, a lot of name calling that makes no sense because there's no woke culture in South Africa. There's nothing called woke. You understand? What you have in South Africa, unengane zabantu poor in urban areas. You have black people's poor kids coming from the rural areas and they are on Twitter, right? Like I am right now. They are on Twitter or X. They are on Instagram, some of them. They've graduated or they've taken university. But then you look at the unemployment rate. They look around and they see the unemployment rate. They've been let down. Number one, by the system that the ANC inherited, right? Because it never changed. It has never changed. In fact, people who were rich and who were privileged in apartheid are 400 times better off right now than they were during apartheid, right? And then the people who are worse off, they've just fallen off, right, off the ladder. Either it's an income ladder or it's a living ladder, like in South Africa. They've just fallen off because the gap has been widened so much. Abantu bayasebenza manje, umuntu uyasebenza uyigraduate, isalary ayanele, right? But then, I mean, we're talking about investing in this channel, but then you read what dividends or how much dividends are paid to owners, how much dividends are paid to so and so, how much dividends are paid to so and so. So, if faulty ANC has validated the arrogance that undermines and minimizes the damage that was done by the system that the ANC failed to correct. Right? That's how I see this. Because there's no wokeness in South Africa. In South Africa, unabantu who are poor on 350 grants. Unabantu who work in farms. Some of them get killed. Some of them, they sleep on this amount of food. You understand? Unabantu abahlala emjondolo eSouth Africa. Unabantu abadrive ama-taxi eSouth Africa, abaphanda ngama-taxi, whether they sell food or they sell Sprite or istone eranki or whether they sell ukudla, or whether bashaya isicabha, That's how ordinary folk are living in South Africa. That's the ordinary folk in South Africa. The ordinary folk is not on Twitter. Umuntu oku-Twitter is usually someone who has some knowledge on how to use the internet. And even this wokeness level of thinking, it's not something that you find on the ground in South Africa with an ordinary folk. An ordinary folk in South Africa, worried ngokuthi makushaya u-7 past 7 ebhodweni kuzobe kuhlelile. That's it. That's what we worry about, right? And so 140 race-based laws, it's exactly that. How do you make 140 base laws? The only problem is this. The problem is not the number of 140 laws for me. The problem is that all of these 140 laws, they have not worked for a common man. Such that we are at a point where even the common man sees no point of these 140 race laws, even if he's black, right? Because the ANC has made all of these laws, but then what? Right? Besides, Ugutu Ramaphosa will honor all the franchise right to McD, and Patrice Motsepe is creating a new bank, and so is doing what? Just closed a new deal, new BEE deal. Other than that, how does it trickle down to the ordinary folk or the ordinary man? That's the problem. That's why I want to bekutshela manje bethi kwakungcono during ikhathi ze-apartheid. Uzabantu manje, they're saying kungcono sibuyele kwi-Freedom Front Plus. People wouldn't have said this in 2007. Freedom Front Plus has been here for a while. For a while. But people have not been saying this. Even at DA, growth at DA, something happened. Something broke. with abantu ne-ANC. And I usually say this ukuthi the problem we have njengamanje ukuthi siyavumela as South Africans, right? Well, mostly if you ask most South Africans, at least verbally, because I don't know ukuthi umuntu wenzani mase vota, because nami awungazi ngenzani. I could be talking all of this smack and you don't know who I'm voting for. Whoever you think I'm leaning towards to, it doesn't matter. Politics is politics, and what I do in the ballot paper doesn't. It's up to me. So but I'm saying, even the emergence of EDA, right? Like 2005, there are some conversations you wouldn't have had. There were certain parties who were never, you wouldn't think of bringing up with a black person, right? Or with it, I'll just say it, with a black person, because our politics is race related. Like you can't escape it, whether you like it or not. It's race centered a lot. It centers a lot with race. So I'm saying, what happened was they faltered, right? They faltered. And our Freedom Front Plus, they're gaining ground, right? They're gaining ground such that people are feeling like, you know what, it really doesn't matter anymore. It really doesn't matter because all of these 140 laws, what have you done with them? What have you done with them? So I need to start looking for alternatives, and maybe I need to start looking past Ukala. I need to, but then you look at this. Then on the other hand, you ask yourself, why is Elon this desperate to bring Starlink to South Africa? Because every other, these are ICASA laws. So this is based on ICASA. So let's look at this, for example. Vodacom, BEE vehicle. So Vodacom has it. This is from 2018. It's called Yebo Yetu. It's a broad-based black economy empowerment, right? So I'm gonna read an article from 2018. Let's see. So Vodacom Group in groundbreaking 7.5 billion rand BEE ownership transaction. So it says this was Monday, 11 June 2018. Literally eight years after 2010 World Cup. How removed are we? We are approaching 16 years now of World Cup. Anyways, so largest ever BE transactions in the ICT sector that includes all our existing BE partners and new staff scheme. So Yebo Yetu to remain listed on the BE segment of the JSE. So that's another thing. If you wanna get invested to BE shares, there is a section for that. So I'm gonna do another video one day and we're gonna break that down, right? So 5.8 to 6.25% deal that consolidates the BE shareholding through Yebo Yetu at Vodacom level. So the transaction will deliver around 7.5 billion of value to existing BE shareholders, of which is around 6.7 times the original capital investment. Right? So it will also increase Vodacom's group effective BE ownership to 20%. So yeah. So Yebo Yetu owns 20% of Vodacom. Right? So if you are a person who belongs in the BE category, right, you can invest into Yebo Yetu. So when you buy Yebo Yetu shares, so indirectly invest with Vodacom, right, 20%. So what usually happens is the company doesn't operate. It usually doesn't operate. It doesn't have an asset where they own a call center, where there's a bunch of call center agents running business, running offices. Usually it doesn't operate. It usually it just get paid dividends. Paid dividends. Um, yeah, you like as well. DSTV has their own as well. So DSTV also they use the space mos ama networks. DSTV BE shares. I think Putu Manati. Yeah, this is DSTV. So no, MTN used to have it. MTN used to have it as well, but they dissolved it. I think it gets technical why they dissolved it, but they couldn't pay. Like MTN was not doing very well. But this is DSTV's version of BEE shares, right? There, yeah. This is Putumanat. So they're saying to Elon Musk, he should create the equivalent of this, something efananale, basically, right? Create a BEE company on the side that's going to own 20% of Starlink, and then black investors also invest, whoever fits into that category of BEE. That is the fight. So man, Elon doesn't want all of that. He's worth 700 billion. He wants to be worth 1 trillion. That's it. That's the only thing I end up now. So, but I was saying, I'm a parties afana no Freedom Front Plus, no DA. This is the NC's work, or the ANC is doing, such that people are looking for alternatives, because the one thing that I've seen, right, is that siyavumelana, well, some of us, if you ask, siyavumelana ukuthi ANC is no longer good for us, right? Some people, if you ask, I mean, all Prince Marshall are going everywhere and wherever they can, screaming to the top of their lungs. Betshela abantu ukuthi the ANC is done, it's failed in their duty as a party, right? But then the problem engiyibonayo ukuthi asivumelani ukuthi which party are we picking. Like in ngo-74, ANC was majority, like flared out. And that sort of, you could gauge as to what do the interests say, what do the people's interests say. But now, we don't agree on one party as a majority, right? Khona Malem, Julius. There are others who call him a hypocrite, a flip-flopper. He wears 40,000 Gucci shoes. You get me? Khona the Freedom Front Plus. Others, they will tell you it's a party of racists. Khona the DA, right? The suburban dudes and the kids. Athanda DA. Of course, Maui Makai has at ends of it, right? Maui are probably Makai, Eastern Cape. You can probably guess it's ANC, right? But then there's the emergence now of, like I made an example earlier on of, you can get, like, you have a grown-up youth esifundile, understand isingisi se-DA. Some of us understand the Afrikaans se-Freedom Plus, se-Freedom Front Plus. So we fractured. We suddenly fracturing from our parents' decisions of voting Nkatha and voting ANC. And we're voting for the EFF, we're voting for whoever, you know. Mbuto, who was that guy? No. Who was that guy? One Nation or One South Africa guy. There was that guy who was everywhere. We're so fragmented, and then I'm just wondering if we're gonna get a collective word or a collective effort, even with coalitions, because I think people glorify coalitions, because coalitions is divided power. Divided power to me makes no sense, because you cannot have one group of people, at least majority of people, pulling into one direction. That's the problem with it. Like you see right now with this. The DA doesn't want this. DA wants none of this. You understand? I would guess the Freedom Front Plus wants none of this. You ask the MK, yes, they want it. You want the ANC, yes, they want it. So now you ask yourself, is it the politician Or is it the ordinary folk? Olala ngobhontshisi ne-rice, on the streets. Or who doesn't know where his next meal is gonna come from, even some of them. You know? Who does it affect the most when we are fractured like this as voters? Because that's it. We don't we as for Milan, but anyway, that's just my 2 cents. That is my 2 cents. But it seems like manipulation because if I can tell, these laws were not made. They were not just made at random, right? They were made trying to fix a problem. Now we can have a conversation whether that problem has been solved or not, whether they did it successfully or not. I don't know. What do you think? But if two houses are built close to each other, engwazi, two houses close to each other, and now out of these houses, one house burns, right? Say there was a gas explosion. There was 5 gases or gas tanks in one house, and they exploded. And then on the other hand, it's only a stove that started a fire. It's only just, in fact, there's no fire. There's no fire. You don't call the ambulance or you don't call the fire department for the house that is not on fire. You call the ambulance for the house that's on fire so that they come and take out the fire. That's why these 140 laws were made, socialist laws were made. Because, in fact, they were not made or pulled out of anywhere. Some of them were reversing laws that existed previously. It's just that they were favorable to a certain group that is not black then. So they were just changed, right? Got to know now we're gonna be more favorable to these guys. That's it. The same, just like you had been favorable for these guys for what, 70 years, 60 years, from 48 to 1990 or however you call it, right? So not all of them were just pulled out of thin air, basically, is what I'm saying. That's the part. But the next conversation we need to have, if we are for these 140 laws, is have they been successful? And even if Starlink like South Africa, so it's all internet, but nakhona, what about our privacy? I mean, Americans, they hell bent on privacy and all those kind of things. What does it mean? Because internet is very dangerous. I mean, right now, Iran is falling, for example. Like, there's a lot of chaos in Iran njengamanje. But apparently, but Starlink is working properly. So people can communicate through Elon Musk's platform. And you don't think Elon Musk has his own interest as well? That's only the point I'm making. Anyways, I wanna move on to another topic now.